Marisol Ríos. I'm the Director of Recruitment and Admissions for the Price School of Public Policy for USC. I'm here today to talk about preparing for graduate school. I've been at USC for 19 years, and I have been in graduate admissions all my 19 years at USC. So I have experience in reviewing applications, recruiting graduate students. Most of my experience has been with the Price School of Public Policy. My prior experience to the Price School of Public Policy was with the Professional School of Social Work. But the last 16 years have been with the Price School. What we're going to be going over today in my presentation, I'm going to be talking about the graduate application and all the components that are required for a graduate application. I'm going to reference the Price School of Public Policy and USC programs, but all of the components of a graduate application apply to general other programs. If you are thinking of applying to other schools in other professional fields, most of the graduate applications consist of the same application components. I will talk about application forms, official transcripts, application fee, statement of purpose or personal statement, letters of recommendation, test scores, and scholarship applications. I will have my colleague from the office here in Mexico City, Angela McCracken, who will talk about the different partnerships that we have with organizations here within at USC with various academic programs. I will also give you a brief overview and provide you with some information of some of the graduate programs that we offer at the Price School of Public Policy. So let me go back. Application forms. It's very important. Sometimes you might think that an application, submitting a graduate application is not as important, but you have to pay very close attention to the application. The other parts of the material, the supplemental material, are also important, but the actual application that you have to submit, making sure that your personal information, your academic records, all the information that the institution, the schools that you're applying for is asking you for accurate information. So you want to make sure that when you do apply that you are submitting accurate information, complete information, making sure that names are not misspelled, that you're using the correct names as you are in other documents that you are submitting, because that can delay the review of your application if your application has a different name from any material that you submit to the institution. So you want to make sure that the information is matches. Official transcripts is another big part of the application that students probably don't think is as crucial or don't pay close attention to. Transcripts. Official transcripts for most institutions, especially at USC, if you're applying to any academic program at USC requires that you submit transcripts from all institutions that you attended in the original language. It would be in Spanish, and also in the English translation. So they do require that you submit both the English and the Spanish original language. Now USC has made it a lot easier for students to be able to upload an official. They have to be official copy, but it can be a copy can be uploaded through the online application system. So it does allow you to do that to begin the review process. And meanwhile, your official documents do arrive with the institution. So just make sure that you do follow the instructions, request your transcripts early on so your application, when it is the time for you to submit, that your transcripts are already in transit, they're already in the system, because it will delay your review of your application if your transcripts are missing, because it will be considered an incomplete application. So you definitely want to make sure that you start requesting transcripts early on. Application fee. A lot of institutions, graduate applications, they range from $80 to maybe $150. It really depends on the institution that you're applying. USC's application fee is $85. Some academic units, professional schools might offer an application fee waiver. So when you're looking at the programs that you're applying, you want to make sure that you do your research and find out and learn whether or not the programs that you're applying do offer application fee waivers. Statement of purpose. This is, I don't know if you can see it, but this is the statement of purpose. This is what the institution is asking you to submit. So you want to make sure that you do your research and find out and learn whether or not the programs that you're applying do offer application fee waivers. Statement of purpose. This is, I don't know if you can see it, but this is probably one of the big important components of your application that you really need to prepare for your application, and you have enough time, find out when the deadlines are, and you have enough time to prepare for your statement of purpose. Statement of purpose or personal statement is usually what some of the programs, graduate programs, will refer to it as you'll hear a personal statement or a statement of purpose. There are two types of personal statements. There's the general comprehensive personal statement, and then there's the response to a very specific prompt. Some academic programs will give you no guidelines, will just tell you to submit a personal statement, and it leaves you, and you really don't have any idea what you need to talk about. So there's some programs that do offer a very specific prompt. They give you questions that you need to address specific to the program that you're applying. For the Price School of Public Policy, we do have specific questions for each of the programs that we offer. And we make it a lot easier for the student to be able to complete a statement of purpose. But you can begin by doing your research beforehand to prepare yourself for the statement of purpose. Before drafting your statement of purpose, you want to remember who your audience is, who's going to be reading your application. For most graduate programs, there's usually a committee. It might involve staff, admissions counselors, or it might involve a committee of faculty. You can find out by asking or contacting the programs, the schools that you're applying to, and finding out who's going to read your application. Is it going to be a faculty committee? Is it going to be administration, staff, a combination of both? Find out, because you really want to get to know who's going to be reading your application. Again, research the school and the program to which you're applying to, because you definitely want to know about the school that you're applying. You want to make sure it's the right fit for you. In regards to research, the offerings that they have in regards to curriculum, do they match those research interests that you're interested in? So you want to make sure that before you draft your statement of purpose that you do the research in the school that you are applying. Oftentimes we get the question asked about academic record. If the academic record, the student might have not performed well the first 2 years maybe in college, and they didn't do well because, they decided to do more of, the partying the first 2 years and enjoy themselves in college and really did not focus in the academics, or it was a really tough transitioning from high school to undergraduate education, so it took them maybe 2 years for them to get acclimated, so their grades suffered. So we always tell students, and I always recommend students to talk about that in your statement of purpose. Talk about, what was it that you did? Did you change a major? Was there a health issue? If there's anything personal, if you can turn your academic record into a positive, and you can talk about your what you did to improve your grades. And if you can just explain that in your statement of purpose, it's actually more for the committee. The committee won't draw conclusions from looking at your transcripts and looking at your poor academic record without having any idea what really happened. So you don't want the committee to draw their conclusions based just on your academic record. So you want to talk about it. Talk about it in your statement of purpose. This is a great opportunity for you to mention it. Create an outline of what you want to talk about in your statement of purpose. Some statement topics is, how did you become interested in the field? What kind of activities or experiences have you had that have contributed toward your preparation for this field? What are your research interests? What attracts you most about the institution that you're applying? And why are you a match to the program? This is what we look for. This is what I look for. This is when I'm reading an application, I'm reading a statement of purpose. This is what I'm looking for. Why USC? Why the Price School of Public Policy? Why the Master's in Public Administration? Why are you interested in a specific faculty? Do you talk about the faculty? And this goes back to you doing the research of the institution and the program that you're applying to, because this is where you put everything together, and this is where we as a committee, who's reading the application, will see, okay, the student is a great fit. The students' research interests match those of what we have to offer at USC at the Price School. And this is for any other program, not just the Price School, not just at USC, but I think for any other master's program that you're applying, you want to make sure that you do your research. And these are some of the topics. If the program that you're applying to does not give you any guidelines in what to talk about, these are some of the things that you definitely want to talk about. Why the field, your research interest, why the institution, We're in Los Angeles. Why do you want to study public policy in Los Angeles? Why do you want to study urban planning in Los Angeles? Those are the kind of things that we want to see in your statement of purpose. This is beginning to end, what you want to cover on your statement of purpose. You definitely want to have an outline to help you. An opening paragraph. Provide us with a little bit of background about yourself. That's always helpful. I always remember opening paragraphs from students, talking about their experiences, positive experience, their childhood. A student who, and I always think of this one because I remember reading an application of a student who was applying to urban planning. And the student mentioned that when he was a little kid, he liked to play with Legos and liked to build cities. So, and that's how he started his statement, with an opening. So it kind of brings the reader, and it catches my attention. So you want to have an opening line, paragraph, that's going to catch the reader's attention, and they're not going to lose interest. So you want to make sure that you have that in the very beginning. Talk about your academic accomplishments. That's about 5-7 sentences. Your research experience, if you've done research, if you work for a research center, if you've done work with a faculty member, you want to make sure that you do mention that. If you've published a lot, sometimes some students actually have done publications, so that's something else that you can address and talk about in your statement of purpose. And then your employment and volunteer experience and how that relates to the field that you're applying. A lot of times students probably didn't have the undergraduate academic field that would have led them into the master's program, but maybe the employment or the volunteer work that they've done exposed them to the field that they're applying to, or the master's that they're applying for. So that's an opportunity again for you to talk and kind of to tie your interest and your background, your employment or your volunteer experience to the field that you're applying to. And then talk about your future plans and why you are a good fit. Why are you good fit to the program, what your plans are, your career goals, and what you hope to accomplish, what you want to gain from the program, the type of skills that you want to gain, and how you're going to apply those to your future plans. And then, conclusion, your interest in your interest in the school, reiterate your interest in the program that you're applying. Be very careful. A lot of times, a lot of students are applying to more than one school. They're applying to multiple schools. I've seen it a lot of times. I read a lot of statements where the student leaves the wrong institution name. And it happens where they're applying to a lot of public policy programs, and instead of mentioning USC, they mention our rival school, which is UCLA. So you want to make sure that you proofread your statement, have somebody else proofread your statement before you submit it. That's very important, and you want to tailor it. You want to make sure that the statement that you're submitting really is, you're answering the question, especially if the program that you're applying to is asking you for specific questions. Sometimes you might be able to use the same statement, but you want to make sure that what the statement that you're submitting for a specific program, you're answering the correct questions. And you don't want to leave the committee wondering, why is this student applying to our program? The student didn't mention their interest in the curriculum or the research or the faculty. That wasn't mentioned at all. So you want to make sure that you do all that in your statement of purpose. Letters of recommendation are very important as well, part of the graduate application. Most programs will require at least three letters of recommendation. Some of them might just require 2. For our programs, At USC in the Price School of Public Policy, we require 3 letters of recommendation. We require academic and professional letters of recommendation. The academic letters of recommendation, somebody who's been a recent graduate, who's been out of school for the last maybe, less than 5 years, we want to see academic letters of recommendation. It's very important for us to see letters from faculty and that can talk about the student's potential in a graduate program. Now, if you've been in the workforce for more than 5 years and it's really hard for you to get letters of recommendation from faculty, we will accept professional letters of recommendation. Not a good idea to get a letter of recommendation from mom or dad. We've seen that. We've seen that. I've seen everything. It's not going to help your application. It can hurt you. So don't do that. So again, no personal. We want to see the academic, your work experience, your potential as a professional in the field, and that's if you've been in the workforce. That's what we want to see. Follow up with the faculty. If you're a student right now in undergraduate, start making those connections with the faculty because you want to make sure that you get not generic letters of recommendation from faculty. You really want to get letters of recommendation from faculty that really know you and know your work and know your academic performance. So you want to start early on and start reaching out to them. Go to office hours, start talking to them, share with them if you're going to be applying to programs. Give them enough time. Faculty are busy. Everybody's busy. They have papers to, grade, tests to grade, so you want to give them enough time. You're not the only one that's asking letters of recommendation to them, so give them enough time. Provide them with your statement and your resume, and that's helpful for them to be able to talk about, they can mention some of those things in your letter of recommendation, so make sure that you do give them enough time. Those are important. Again, a lot of programs now or universities have online application systems which allow your recommenders to upload letters electronically, so they don't have to give them to you and you submit them. They submit them electronically. So it makes it a lot easier for them. You provide your information at USC. Our new online application system allows our students to provide the recommenders information, and then they get emails, and the faculty will be able to provide letters of recommendation to them. If you're not sure if the faculty or the employer you're asking to write a letter of recommendation might not give you a positive letter of recommendation, find somebody else. And sometimes I've seen where the letters of recommendation, they're horrible letters of recommendation that sometimes faculty or an employer gives to a student, and I don't think the student realizes. So you want to make sure that whoever's writing a letter of recommendation for you really knows you. And you know that they're going to write a positive letter of recommendation, because that could hurt your application because you're competing against other students. And if your academic record, GPA, and test scores match, and they're looking for something, to see, okay, what student is a better student, a more competitive student, and if it's the letters, the last part that they're looking at, and you have better letters of recommendation and the other student does based on the ratings, that can hurt you. So you definitely want to make sure that your letters of recommendation are coming from people who are going to say positive things about you. And that's very important. Tests. All graduate programs will require a record exam, entrance exam. The GRE is an exam that a lot of graduate programs require. Some programs, depending on which ones you're applying, if you are applying to MBA programs, the GMAT is accepted. But I think now, there's some MBA programs who are starting to accept the GRE. The GRE is administered by ETS. The website to learn more about the GRE, you can go to ets.com. I don't think it's ETS. That might be incorrect, the .com. Most schools, like I mentioned, most schools will require the general GRE. Depending on the institution, programs that you're applying, they might require a subject test. So it's best to find out what test the program that you're applying to is required before you spend the money on a subject test. The test is costly, $205 US dollars, and that's how much it'll cost you. There's a quantitative and a verbal score, and they range from 130 to 170 per section. Analytical writing scores range from 0 to 6. Some programs will put more emphasis on the GRE than others, depending on what programs you're applying to. The emphasis and I'll talk right now about the English exams. For our programs at USC, our Masters in Public Policy programs, we do put heavy emphasis on the GRE. It is important, especially our programs that are very quantitative focused. We want to see that the student can perform well. And GRE is not the only part that we look at, but it is important, especially if you're applying to scholarships. And I'll talk a little bit about scholarships, but it is very important that you have a competitive score, because that's going to help you and that's going to make you even more competitive when you're applying to the programs. If you can show that you can do well in the GRE test. Like I mentioned earlier, with the exception of law, medicine, and business, they have their own test. There's the LSAT, there's the GMAT, the MCAT, but the more common test that students will take for the social sciences will be the GRE, and that's the one that we accept. All domestic students and international students are required to take this test. If you're applying to executive programs, a lot of executive programs will exempt you from the GRE. So you might not even have to take the GRE. So make sure that when you're looking at programs, if it's an executive programs, they will require work experience, extensive work experience, but you can be exempt from the GRE, and it really depends. So again, do your research early. Start early in researching the requirements of every program and school that you're researching. Again, the scores requirements vary by program, by institution, by field. At the price school, we pretty much, for all of our programs, all of our master's programs, the requirements are pretty much the same for all of the programs. But our GR requirements might be different from another public affairs school. So again, you want to make sure that you do your research and learn. These are USC examples at the price school of what our average scores are for our master's programs. The quantitative is a 155, the average verbal is a 157. For PhD programs, 166, and the average verbal is a 163. So as you can see, it's a little bit different. Again, the higher the scores are, the more competitive you will be for the scholarships. Another test that's required at USC, and other institutions might not have this requirement. So USC has a specific English proficiency requirement, and then the professional school, the academic unit, might have a separate English requirement for the English exam. USC accepts the TOEFL IBT and also accepts the IELTS. The registration fee for the TOEFL is $180, which I believe is almost the same. It's the same also for the IELTS. For the TOEFL, the minimum score that the price school looks for in public affair in public policy is a minimum score of 100. 20 in each section is what we're looking for. Your scores have to be valid if and within the 2 years of your intended first semester. So they can be older than 2 years from the start of the fall semester. So they're older, you do have to retake the test. For the IELTS, 7 or above is what we're looking for, and 6 or above in each of the sections of the band. Again, this is USC. There might be different requirements for other institutions, so you want to make sure. I didn't mention for the GREs, you can take the GRE as many times as you want. USC does not penalize you for retaking the test. USC will take the best score of each section. Now, that's USC. If you're applying to other institutions, check with the other institutions. They might penalize you, or they might average out your scores. We don't average them out. We will take the best score of each section. So if you scored well on the first, if you scored well the first time on the verbal, but your quant score wasn't as competitive, you take the test again and you do better on the quant, we'll take the better score. So just, you can take it as many times as you want. And I think ETS only allows you to take the test once a month. Here in Mexico, I think it might be a little bit different in the testing dates or when they offer in the U.S. because there's different test centers and when they offer it. So they offer it a lot more, I believe so, than here in Mexico. But test scores are very important, again, for admission purposes, and also at USC, if you don't reach a certain score, then you're required to take an English language exam when you arrive on campus. We try to avoid that with our programs. We are pretty strict in what we're looking for in the 100, so we want to make sure that students there's no need for the student to take an English language exam when they arrive. So we're looking for the 100, and that's pretty strict with us with that test score. You want to make sure, again, with the GRE and also with the English language test, you want to make sure that you plan ahead and you take the test in time for you to be able to get your scores, because it does take ETS and it might take IELTS some time to report your scores. So you want to make sure that you do take the test in advance so that way your scores come in time, especially if you're applying for scholarships. You want to make sure that your scores arrive on time so that way you're considered for scholarships, because then you lose the opportunity if your scores don't come in. I've seen it. This year we had a case of a student whose application, her name was different on the application than her test scores. The student lost the opportunity to be considered for a scholarship, and she was a very competitive student. She probably would have received a half or a full tuition scholarship. But because her scores were under a different name from their application, it didn't match. So, and this is what I'm talking about. The application is very important that you use your legal name. Everything that you're using to submit your tests, English, your TOEFL, your GREs, make sure that the name that you're using for those exams matches that of your application and your transcripts, because you'll lose the opportunity of being considered for a scholarship. So just make sure that you pay attention to that. I'm going to just talk briefly a little bit about the price school. We recently, a month ago probably, we moved up in rankings. We're number 2 now in the U.S. and World News Report, and we do have some special rankings in certain fields. We're number 1 in urban policy. We're 3rd in health policy and management, 3 in homeland national security, 4th in public management and leadership, 4th in local government and management, and then 6th in public policy analysis. At the Price School, we offer various academic programs. We do have undergraduate programs, and we also have master's and PhD programs. The master's programs that we offer: urban planning, real estate development, public policy, public administration, nonprofit leadership and management, health policy and management. And we are actually launching a new program this fall. Data science and public policy is our new master's program that we're launching. Our doctoral programs, we offer 3 programs, 2 PhD programs, 1 in public policy and management, and another one in urban planning and development. And then we also offer a professional doctor program, the Doctor of Policy Planning and Development, and then we have various executive programs as well. The Price students, we have about close to 2,000 students. That's combined our undergraduate, graduate, and PhD students. Most of our student population at the Price School are graduate students. 15% are from foreign countries, representing 49 countries and regions. 53% are female. 43 are from outside of Southern California, representing 43 different states within the U.S. Let me see what else. Our application. This is specific to the Price School and our master's programs that we offer at the Price School. Graduate application, the requirements, $85 application fee, official transcripts, original along with your English translation, or GRE or GMAT, depending on the program that you're applying, because we do take the GMAT for certain programs. TOEFL, IELTS score, supplemental application, that's part of the online application. Your resume, 3 letters of recommendation, personal statement, and the financial statement of support that you will need to show the a statement, bank statement that shows that you can pay for the first year. Now, if you're getting funding from the program at any of the programs at USC, that information gets sent over to the admissions office because if you are admitted, in order for you to get an I-20, you do need to show that you have the funds to be able to attend the first year of the program. Application deadlines, the fall, December 15 is our application deadline. Final admissions deadline is June 1st, and then we do have a PhD deadline of December 1st. Again, these are a lot of the programs, a lot of master's programs do have their deadlines in December, either December 1st, the middle of December, or even January. There is a national deadline if you're applying to graduate programs in public affairs. There is a deadline, a national deadline, where students have to notify us by April 15th. So any offer that you receive that comes along with the scholarship, you will have to let that institution know by April 15 in order for you to receive the funding. There's a deadline of April 15 that you need to notify. So most of the schools, we start off making offers beginning of February, mid-February, we start making offers to students. So they have until April 15 to decide whether or not they choose to go to attend an institution. So this is an overview, and we do have we have a partnership with CONACYT, the Masters in Public Administration, Public Policy, the Planning Program, and Health Administration. We have awarded up to it's up to $10,000. This year we actually awarded 3 scholarships, 2 full. We actually went up to the full tuition to 2 students and 1 half. Our minimum was up to $10,000, but the students were very competitive, where we awarded them the half and we awarded 2 full tuition. So there is funding. We have scholarships for international students, merit-based, again, test scores, letters of recommendation, everything we take everything into consideration, but we do have the funding and we do have the partnership with CONACYT, and I'm going to turn it over to Angela, who will talk to you a little bit more about some of these partnerships, and we'll also talk about partnerships within other academic units at USC in the professional schools and the programs.
Thank you, Marisol. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah. But thank you. That was great. If you've ever wondered how you're going to provide that financial statement, being able to cover the cost of a 2-year master's program or a 5-year PhD program and your living expenses, I'm here to talk about that. For people who can't provide that financial statement, and for people who can but don't want to, we have the option of scholarships, the ones that Marisol was talking about. The reason that the GRE is so important, and the personal statement and the letters of recommendation, is because the better that application, the better scholarship you can get. It's a merit-based system. So even if you don't need help with the financial statement, you can receive funding, half funding, or full funding, just because you're a great student. In addition, we've made some agreements with institutions in Mexico and other countries in Latin America to make these scholarships more accessible in partnership with the government and foundations that we work with. We coordinate to let each other know when we have students that are going to get our scholarship and their scholarship, and you can add them together, and it helps pay. One thing I should mention first is if you're a PhD student at USC, and the great majority of research level institutions that are offering PhD, you should not have to pay anything. So your financial statement will be a letter of admission and stating your scholarship that you're getting and the living expenses that they will cover. So these agreements focus on funding for master's programs. What we have a great agreement with CONACYT that includes public policy programs that Marisol was speaking about, as well as our programs in engineering, our master's programs in engineering in the Viterbi School of Engineering. We also have an agreement with FUNED, which is the Fundación Mexicana para la Educación, and they offer what is a credit scholarship or a beca crédito. They also offer a joint scholarship with CONACYT, so part of it can be a grant or fondo perdido from CONACYT, and FUNED a little bit of beca crédito. And then we have an agreement with FIDER, which is administered by the Bank of Mexico. It's the Fideicomiso para Educación y Recursos Humanos, I believe. I'm not sure what the E stands for, but they have beca crédito, low interest loans. The government of Mexico subsidizes it to make it accessible to students to take out some loan to help cover the rest of their personal costs or the rest of tuition in case they need. And these two institutions, we have agreements in architecture, Annenberg School for Communications and Journalism, the USC Gould School of Law, and the USC Marshall School of Business. So these are just additional opportunities to take advantage of. But I think the important thing to keep in mind is they're based on academic merit. So these are one tool among many opportunities, but like Marisol mentioned, you could get even better scholarships if you're focusing on the academic merit in your application. So that's all from me now, but we can share our contact with you online. We're here. I'm here based in Mexico City. We're working on additional agreements if there's anybody here from Central America. We have agreements in South America as well. If you're from a different country, feel free to contact me, and I'm happy to speak with you about your situation. Oh, do we have questions?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
We have, I don't know if everyone will be able to hear me, but we do have questions from Facebook. So the first question is, I'm trying to start a master's in engineering, but my English is not perfect. Do you have a specific program for people like me, starting with English course and then the master's degree?
Yes, thank you for that question. We do have we have two options. One is a pre-master's, which is you apply for a master's in engineering and you don't have the level of English. You might not even have the score on the GRE necessary for a full admission. They give a conditional admission, and they admit you to 1, 2, or 3 semesters of test prep and English preparation. So they can evaluate based on other elements of your application your ability to be a strong engineering student, and admit you to 1, 2, or 3 semesters. The condition for starting the master's is fulfilling those English requirements and the grades on the GRE exam. We also have a master's prep, which is you might not have been admitted to our master's program, or you want to go to a different master's program. in a different country, in a different state, or you're just not sure yet. So you want to focus on developing the English, maybe working on your test prep as well for the GRE, and you can take 1, 2, or 3 semesters just focusing on that, with advising that will focus on what schools you do want to apply to, and all of the elements that Marisol talked about, focused on what's the best program for you, and making your application as strong as it can be.
And we do have another question from our colleague in Peru, Kelly Villanueva. And Ms. Rios, thank you for your presentation. I would like to know your advice for graduate applicants who have 7 to 10 plus years of professional experience and now have a few, if any, connections to undergrad professors. Should all students have an undergrad professor recommendation, or would it be all right to just present professional and employee recommendation letters?
For most, at least at the Price School, we will accept the professional letters or recommendation in lieu of an academic for somebody who's been out in the workforce for more than the 5 years. You want to make sure that you check with the institution and the program that you're applying to make sure that that's acceptable. But in our case, we understand that you've been out of school for a while, and we're going to emphasize more on your professional experience than the and undergraduate academic record. So my recommendation is if you can't, if it's impossible for you to get an academic, a professional letter in lieu of the academic would suffice. But again, you want to make sure that you check with the academic program, master's programs that you're applying to. Can I add? Yeah, sure.
I want to add my recommendation for asking for letters of recommendation from undergraduate professors. I was briefly an undergraduate professor, and I get requests to write letters of recommendation, and I think it's very, very helpful. We don't always remember all of our students, and we definitely don't remember all of the details of that student's excellence. So you can help a professor by providing them a refresher on your relationship with them. You can say, I took, in 1999, I took this class with you. I did my senior thesis with you. My topic was this. We had a conversation. You told me this. You can provide them all that information to help them remember, oh, she got an A in that class and she got an A plus in the other class. We worked on a research project with her. She was very bright. So you can provide them that information with the request, and that makes it easier for them and sometimes easier for us to ask for that letter saying, I have a basis to request.
We have another question. I would like to apply to a PhD in political science. I know it's different to an MPP, but sometimes both programs belong to the same school. Anyway, most institutions ask for a writing sample as part of the application. The thing is, I didn't write a thesis to graduate from university, but in the last couple of years I've done some academic writing. Do you think that could work as well? I know no one plans on reading a whole thesis as writing sample, but what concerns me is how important it is to prove my writing skills with a thesis instead of any other kind of academic work. Thank you.
So for our PhD programs, we will require a writing sample. Yes, we don't expect the student to submit their entire thesis, so we have a limit. We just want to see a sample of your writing. It doesn't have to be a thesis. It can actually be work that you did at the master's level or even at the undergraduate level if you're applying to the PhD. Master's programs won't require, most of them will not require you a writing sample, but if you are applying to a PhD program, you definitely will have to submit a writing sample. But again, it doesn't have to be a thesis. It can be max 10 pages, at least that's what we require at USC for our PhD programs. Find out, you don't want to overload the online application system with a 50-page thesis, so make sure that you do look into what the requirement is for the writing sample, because a lot of the times it can just be a piece of a part of your thesis, or it can be a paper that you wrote for one of your master's programs, and that will be sufficient. So again, it doesn't have to be a thesis, at least at the Price School.
Okay, we're gonna have another questions from Facebook, and then we're gonna have the questions from the audience here in our center. It's a follow-up question from Kelly from Peru, and she's asking me if there is a separate scholarship application for the Price School, of if by applying to the graduate program a student is automatically considered.
Yes, so on the online application system, there is a scholarship application. So the student will see it. If you're applying to any of the Price School master's programs, the application is viewable. And if you want to be considered, we do ask the student to answer the questions for the scholarship. And once you respond to the questions, you're automatically considered for our scholarships that we do offer. Most of the time, a lot of the programs will have, through their graduate application, will have a supplemental application that includes the scholarship component. So we do have it, but it's part of the online application. So there's no separate process aside from the online system.
Good afternoon. I'm interested in the PDH could be in public administration, and my reference are about the impact of e-learning minority communities like Chicanos in LA and study. It's for years, maybe 1 year study what happened in California, then in Arizona, and could be the next big community, Latin community, it's Chicago.
So your question is, you want to know the focus, the different focuses?
It's possible to study it in public administration or on faculty or in economy.
So you don't have to have a specific faculty. I mean, if you're applying to the Master's in Public Administration, and if there's a particular faculty that you're interested in, you don't have to have that match. It's a little bit different. At the PhD level, you definitely want to have a faculty who's doing research in the areas that you're interested in, but at the master's level, not so much. I would recommend you looking at the curriculum. There's a lot of public affairs programs, there's a lot of different public administration programs, and they're not all going to be the right fit or might not offer what you're looking for. So my recommendation would be for you to take a look at the curriculum of each of the different public administration programs that are offered, and see which one's the right fit for you, because it might not be, our program might not be the right fit for everyone. So it really depends on your interest and what you're looking for in regards to curriculum and research, certain faculty. So my recommendation would be to look at that, but you don't need to have that faculty match at the master's level. Did I answer your question?
I have another question. Do you have any advice for how prospective international students should try to reach out to connect with USC Price School professors?
Yes. So our faculty are very welcoming. They like to hear from students. My recommendation, and I always tell the students, read their bios, read the research that they're doing, learn about their publications. You email the faculty member and you ask them questions about the research, their publications. They're going to respond to you. But if you ask them questions about the application process, they're probably going to ignore you, refer you to my office. So definitely, if there's certain faculty that you're interested, my recommendation, go to the faculty website, read their bios, read the research that they're doing. If it matches what you're looking for, reach out to them, and then just let them know that you are interested and that you're interested in applying to the program, either at the master's level or at the PhD level, and that you'll be applying, and that you're really interested in talking to them. And the faculty are very responsive, and they like it. They like when students reach out to them, especially if they're really interested in the research. At the PhD level, it's very important that you do have that faculty match, that there is faculty that is doing research in the areas that you're interested. So connecting with faculty at the graduate level, master's level, probably is not as important as it is in the PhD level. At the PhD level, you definitely, I always tell students, reach out to faculty, because they might not be part of the admissions committee, but they'll remember you if your application gets referred to them because you mention them, and the colleague, another faculty member will say, oh, here's a student who's interested in your research. Then the faculty will say, oh, I've had conversations with the student. I've been emailing with the student. So you want to make sure that you do connect, especially at the PhD level. You want to definitely connect with faculty. The master's level, you can, and I do recommend it if you have a really strong interest in working with specific faculty, because at USC, at the Price School, there's a lot of research opportunities. We have a lot of research centers. We do hire a lot of research assistants, so making those connections early on is important.
Sí, you say bye.
Any other questions? Nope.
Hello, I'm right now studying my master's degree, and I'm not sure to do a doctorate degree or a, or a master degree. So my question is about the level of competition. Is different the level of competition for do a PhD? For me, is more difficult because of the number of students interested in that, or is most difficult the master degree level?
I think it depends on the field. It depends on the institution. I can say for at the PhD level, because at USC and at the Price School, if you're interested in public affairs programs, it is competitive, because we fully fund our PhD students. So we only bring 5 students for each of our PhD programs, which is a total of 10 students. We get close to 200 applications. So it's competitive. It's very competitive. Other PhD programs might bring in more students. So it really depends. It depends on the field that you're interested in. Talking to them, doing the research, and finding out how competitive the program is, because that's going to be important. And like I said, for us, our PhD programs are very competitive. So aside from the academic portion, the academic achievements, test scores, the fit is going to be important. And what I mean with the fit is your research interests that match those that we have to offer. And that's with any institution. And I think Angela can, agree with me. That's very important. The fit is very important at the PhD level, because there's no benefit in you coming into a PhD program if there's no faculty that can support you. So if you're considering a PhD program, I would really recommend doing the research and doing the research on the faculty and the research that they're doing, because that's very important. Any other questions? Thank you.